I build things. That is what I do. As a structural forensic engineer, my entire career is dedicated to analyzing failure. I look at collapsed bridges, cracked foundations, and sheared steel beams. I find the exact point where stress overcame strength, the precise micro-fracture that caused the entire structure to come crashing down. Concrete looks permanent, steel feels unyielding. But if you apply the right amount of hidden pressure over time, everything breaks. I should have applied that same logic to my marriage. Elena and I met in Chicago 10 years ago. I was just starting my firm. She was an ambitious marketing assistant. Together, we bought a fixer-upper mid-century modern house in the suburbs of Austin, Texas. For 3 years, I spent every weekend pouring my own sweat into that house. I replaced the rotting joists, reinforced the load-bearing walls, and laid down premium American walnut floors. It was supposed to be our fortress, a structural masterpiece built on mutual trust. Then, Elena got promoted to senior vice president at a luxury branding agency downtown. The shift in the load-bearing dynamics of our relationship didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, creeping settlement. It started with the sensory anomalies. For 7 years, Elena wore Chanel No. 5. It was a familiar, powdery scent that anchored my weekends. Then, suddenly, she switched to Tom Ford's Fucking Fabulous, a sharp, aggressive, leather and almond fragrance that practically screamed defiance. Next came the digital encryption. Our household had always operated on an open ledger policy. Passwords were shared. iPads lay unlocked on the kitchen island. One Tuesday evening, I reached for her phone to check the weather. She snatched it from my hand so fast her fingernail scratched my wrist. "Don't," she snapped, her voice cold, a sharp contrast to the warm Texas breeze outside. "Company policy. We just signed a massive tech client. Non-disclosure agreements." I looked at her face. The soft lines of the woman I loved had hardened into a glossy corporate mask. Soon after, the microaggressions escalated into structural contempt. "You smell like drywall dust and diesel," she said one night, stepping away from my embrace. "Do you have to wear those boots inside?" "I'm hosting a charity board meeting tomorrow. Julian, I can't have the house looking like a construction zone." "I build the world you walk on, Elena," I said quietly. She laughed, a short, brittle sound. "You play with dirt and rocks. Some of us are actually moving the culture forward." That was the moment the internal support beams snapped. She didn't know it yet, but I did. When a structure suffers a catastrophic internal failure, it doesn't always collapse immediately. It stands on residual friction, waiting for the final gust of wind. In my line of work, emotion is a liability. If a bridge collapses and I get angry at the concrete, the bridge doesn't fix itself. I needed data, cold, hard, immutable metrics. The first variable was the mileage. Elena drove a leased BMW X5. I routinely managed the maintenance logs for both our vehicles. When she claimed she was spending the weekend at a corporate retreat in San Antonio, a clean 80-mile drive south down I-35, I checked the odometer upon her return. The trip should have registered roughly 160 miles round trip, including local driving. The odometer showed an additional 412 miles. She hadn't gone south. She had gone east toward Houston, or perhaps deep into the coastal rentals of Galveston. I didn't confront her. Confrontation without absolute leverage is just noise. Instead, I initiated a comprehensive forensic audit of my life. I contacted Marcus, a former Marine and a licensed private investigator I frequently hired to inspect corporate espionage risks for construction bids. I need a full-spectrum surveillance package on my own residence and my wife. I told him over a cup of black coffee in a diner far from our neighborhood. Marcus didn't blink. "You want the cloud backup, the physical tail, or the financial forensic sweep?" "Everything," I said, "and keep it completely off the grid." 3 days later, while Elena was at her late-night strategy session, I upgraded our home automation system. I told her I was installing a new Nest thermostat and smart smoke detectors for insurance discounts. In reality, I integrated military-grade, low-light pinhole cameras into the smoke detector chassis in the master bedroom, the living room, and the home office. They streamed directly to an encrypted offshore AWS server that only Marcus and I could access. The data stream began on a Thursday. I sat in my truck at a construction site in North Austin, laptop open on the center console, watching a live 4K feed of my own bedroom. His name was Pierce Vance. I recognized him instantly. He was the managing partner of the venture capital firm that funded Elena's agency. A high-gloss, trust fund predator with a tailored Italian suit and a jawline built on expensive dental veneers. Watching them together didn't make me cry. It didn't make my hands shake. It did something far worse. It turned my heart into a block of cured industrial concrete. I watched them map out their timeline. When are you going to serve the papers to the dynamic engineer? Pierce sneered on the high-definition audio feed, pouring himself a glass of my 18-year-old Macallan scotch. Soon, Elena murmured, tracing a finger down his chest. But I need the forensic accountant to finish hiding the assets through the agency's offshore shell accounts first. If I divorce him now, Texas community property laws mean he gets half of my equity stake in the new tech buyout. I'm not giving that grease monkey a single dime of my money. Smart girl, Pierce smiled, kissing her. Let him keep the house, it's tacky anyway. I closed the laptop. I had the audio, I had the video. I had the financial records showing she had been siphoning joint marital funds into a corporate LLC controlled by Pierce. They thought they were playing chess. They didn't realize I was the one who designed the board. The trap was laid for the second week of October. I informed Elena that I had to fly to Seattle for emergency structural consultation on a high-rise office tower that was showing signs of foundation slippage. "Oh, that's terrible, darling," she said, barely looking up from her iPad. "Make sure you take your warm coat. Don't worry about me, I'll just be catching up on work here." "I know you will," I said. I kissed her forehead. Her skin felt like ice. I drove to Austin Bergstrom International Airport, checked in for my flight, scanned my boarding pass, and walked into the terminal. To anyone tracking my digital footprint, Julian Vance was on his way to Washington State. But once inside, I walked straight to the long-term parking garage, met Marcus in his blacked-out GMC Yukon, and changed into a clean dark suit. By 9 p.m., Marcus's team confirmed that Pierce's Porsche Taycan had pulled into my driveway. But I wasn't going to just walk in and scream. That's amateur hour. I wanted a public structural failure. I had spent the previous week organizing a surprise appreciation dinner for Elena's agency, celebrating their recent tech client acquisition. I had personally invited her entire executive board, her parents, who traveled from Dallas thinking it was an anniversary celebration, and the local press covering Austin's tech boom. I told them Elena wanted to host an intimate impromptu cocktail hour at our beautifully renovated home before moving to the restaurant downtown. At 9:45 p.m., a luxury Mercedes Sprinter van parked outside my house. Out stepped 10 people. Elena's mother and father, 3 senior partners from her firm, 2 journalists from the Austin Business Journal, and my 2 closest friends, Luke and David, both heavy highway contractors who stood 6'4" and carried themselves like brick walls. I met them at the end of the driveway, emerging from the shadows. "Julian?" Elena's mother, Eleanor, looked confused. "I thought you were in Seattle. And why are all the lights upstairs off?" "There was a change of plans, Eleanor," I said, my voice steady, rhythmic, calm. "The foundation here required immediate inspection. Follow me. Please. Keep your voices down. It's a delicate process." Luke and David walked right behind me, their expressions grim and unreadable. I unlocked the heavy mahogany front door. The deadbolt slid back with a loud, metallic clack that echoed through the foyer. The house smelled strongly of Tom Ford's fragrance and expensive cigars. We walked up the walnut staircase. The guests were whispering, sensing the heavy, suffocating tension in the air. I stopped outside the master bedroom door. I turned to the journalists and the executive board partners. "In structural engineering," I whispered, "we use a technique called destructive testing. You load a component until it completely shatters, so everyone can see exactly what it's made of." I threw the door open. The scene inside was exactly what the high-definition cameras had promised. The room exploded into instant chaos. Elena shrieked, scrambling for the sheets. Pierce bolted upright, his expensive veneer teeth clicking together in sheer panic. Eleanor gasped, covering her mouth, while Elena's father looked like he was about to have a stroke. The journalists immediately reached for their phones, their professional instincts overriding their shock. "Julian! What the hell is this?" Pierce yelled, trying to find his pants. He took an aggressive step toward me. "Get these people out of here." Before he could take another step, Luke and David stepped into the bedroom doorway. They didn't say a word. They just crossed their massive arms, blocking the exit like twin pillars of solid rock. The sheer physical presence of two massive Texas contractors completely neutralized Pierce's bravado. He froze, his face turning an asymmetric shade of pale. I stepped forward, pulling a sleek leather portfolio from under my arm. I tossed it onto the bed. It landed right next to Elena's trembling leg. "That is a comprehensive forensic financial audit," I said, my voice cutting through the room like a diamond blade through glass. "It details the exact routing numbers of the $1.2 million you siphoned from our joint marital estate into Pierce's offshore venture fund over the last 18 months. It also contains 4K digital stills of your strategy sessions from the past 90 days. Elena's face contorted. The expensive mascara she had applied earlier began to melt, running down her cheeks in dark, ugly streaks. "Julian, please. It's not what it looks like. We can talk about this." "There is nothing to talk about," I said. I looked past her to the senior partners of her agency, who were already backing out of the room, their faces masks of pure corporate horror. "Gentlemen, as you can see, your managing partner and your SVP have been using company resources and insider trading networks to launder personal funds. I believe that violates the moral turpitude clause of your corporate bylaws." The senior partner, a stern man named Henderson, looked at Pierce with absolute disgust. "You're done, Pierce. The board will have your resignation by 8 a.m. tomorrow. And Elena, don't bother coming in to clear your desk." I looked down at the woman I had built a life with. She looked small, crumbled, like a poorly poured concrete pillar that had met its maximum load. "You have 30 minutes to pack one suitcase," I told her, my voice completely devoid of hatred, filled only with the cold finality of a judge delivering a verdict. "The locks are being changed at midnight. Your parents can take you back to Dallas. Anything left behind will be liquidated." 6 months later, it is a quiet, crisp spring evening in Austin. I am sitting on the back patio of my mid-century modern home, watching the sunset bleed amber and violet across the Texas sky. I am drinking a glass of neat bourbon, no scotch. I threw the scotch away. The legal and professional collapse of Elena and Pierce was total, a textbook case of progressive structural failure. Because the financial fraud involved interstate banking and corporate shell companies, the SEC launched a formal investigation. Pierce Vance was stripped of his partnership and is currently facing a federal indictment for wire fraud and embezzlement. His reputation in the Austin venture capital scene is completely obliterated. He is radioactive. Elena fared no better. The court granted me the house, my business intact, and a full restitution order for every single dollar she attempted to steal. Because of the overwhelming, undeniable evidence of her financial misconduct and infidelity, the judge dissolved the marriage with a swiftness that left her lawyers speechless. She now lives in a cramped, rented one-bedroom apartment in North Dallas, working an entry-level copywriting job for a fraction of her old salary. Her career, her social status, her carefully curated luxury lifestyle, all turned to dust. I look down at my walnut deck. It is perfectly level. The foundation of this house is rock solid, cleared of all rot, impurities, and unstable elements. People think revenge is about fire and fury. It isn't. Fire burns out too quickly, leaving room for mistakes. True justice is cold. It is calculated. It is the precise application of truth against the weight of a lie until the lie collapses under its own gravity. Honor and integrity aren't just old-fashioned words. They are the load-bearing pillars of human existence. If you compromise them, if you think you can cut corners and build your happiness on a foundation of betrayal, the universe will eventually send an engineer to inspect your work, and everything you built will come crashing down.